Hey you, it's Shelby. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about imposter syndrome and how this painting actually helped me realize how I was being held back by imposter syndrome. After all the craziness of the new year happened, John and I decided that we wanted to sit down and have a sort of casual meeting where we talk about where we see this business in 5 or 10 years. And just before this meeting took place, I decided I wanted to create a negative watercolor painting tutorial. And while this video itself might not be a tutorial for negative painting, I am writing one that I'm putting on the site. So make sure you go check out the link in the description down below if you want to learn how to create this negative painting technique yourself. So anyway, I approached this painting with a lot of forethought. I sketched it out a couple of times and tweaked it until I got it just the way I liked it. I did a couple of mini test paintings to see how I wanted the color palette to be. I really just took it seriously and didn't just try to wing it the day of. And when I was done, I actually realized this is the first completely planned and thought out painting that was executed all the way through in maybe 8 years or so. Don't get me wrong, I've made plenty of cool pieces of art. I've made lots of little watercolor paintings, but the difference is I either didn't plan those and I just kind of sat down with a blank piece of paper and went to town and something cool happened, or I planned them out quite thoroughly, but I did them all in my bullet journal, so they weren't standalone pieces, but rather a part of an overall system. So I spent 2.5 days meticulously creating this painting. I didn't cut any corners, I didn't hurry or rush anything. I took my time, I did it right, I finished it. I was very pleased with this painting. So I took pictures of it and I was getting ready to publish it on Instagram. As I was writing the description, I thought, I should name this painting. That feels right. And when I started trying to think of a name for this painting, that's when I ran into a hesitation. A little voice whispered in my head and said, naming a painting is only for real artists. If you name this painting, people are going to think that you're pretentious, that you're pretending to be something you're not. And I felt silly. I felt a little ashamed of myself for wanting to name this painting. And then I stopped and I was like, but wait a second. I did paint this painting. I think that means that I qualify as an artist, and there aren't going to be any art police who are going to come knocking at my door telling me that I'm not allowed to do this. The only reason why I felt this hesitation, why I felt this shame and embarrassment, is because of imposter syndrome. Now, if you're not familiar with imposter syndrome, basically it is this feeling of not being worthy, of not being good enough. I went ahead and came up with a name for the painting. I posted it to Instagram. All was well. It was fine. But it did get me thinking about imposter syndrome and how it has been subtly holding me back, how it's been whispering in my ear for as long as I can remember. And I carried this thought process with me as John and I went into our sort of big picture meeting. I thought about all the things that I wish I could do and I've wanted to do, but I felt like I couldn't for some reason or another. During that meeting, John and I talked about a lot of things. But one of the big things that we talked about was that I'm still trying to kind of figure out how I want to present myself online, what kind of role I want to have, how I want others to see me and perceive me. Because as it stands right now, I have been sort of keeping myself in a couple of narrow little boxes because it feels like I'm not allowed to step out of those boxes. I'm afraid maybe my audience will leave me if I don't stick to the same things that I've always done. And if there's one thing that I knew during this meeting I wanted to do in the future, it is that I wanted to open myself up so I don't have to stay within these few particular subjects. And the subjects I'm talking about are bullet journaling, watercoloring, and brush lettering or calligraphy. Of course, I love all 3 of those topics. I have nothing against them. They're a part of me, they're a part of who I am, and I will never stop being interested in them. But for a long time now, I have felt extremely anxious and nervous about sharing anything else on my site or on my Instagram or in my YouTube videos because it feels like I'm pinned to these particular subjects and I cannot deviate from them for fear of losing everything. I don't want to feel like I have to do these things. I want to be able to not just share those very carefully curated parts of me, but the rest of me too. That general theme aside, there were 3 specific things that I realized I wanted to do moving forward that I want to go ahead and share with you. The first thing is I want to continue to be an educator of sorts. I've always been interested in being someone who shares knowledge. That's really what Little Coffee Fox was built on. I want to be able to share what I know so that other people can learn and grow and develop. It's a passion of mine, and I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. The second thing is that I want to open myself up as more of an artist. I've always felt this weird inhibition when it comes to art. Back in high school, I had art classes, just like I had any other classes, and they assigned homework. But even though I had to do this homework, I would still feel guilty for doing it because I enjoyed it so much. I have no idea where this weird guilt about enjoying things came from, but it's been a really big struggle for me on a lot of fronts, art being one of the worst struggles. So I would do my art homework at the very last second, usually, behind everything else, because I felt like I had to do more responsible things before I did this thing that I enjoyed. And I wish I could say I've shaken that, but I still experience it to this day. Even though art is a large part of my job, I still find myself procrastinating it because it feels like I'm not working. So I'll do a bunch of other things to make me feel productive that are completely worthless. Like I'll go through and check all of my different inboxes 3 times before I finally am able to settle in and just get to making art. And that doesn't matter whether it's making a nice bullet journal spread, whether it's lettering, it doesn't really matter. If it's something that I thoroughly enjoy, I'll somehow find some way of procrastinating it and feeling guilty about it, even though that's literally what I do for a living. So needless to say, this has been something of an inhibitor for me when it comes to making new stuff. That's one of the reasons why this particular painting was such a success for me, because it was time consuming and took way more time than I expected, and it was challenging, and I still did it. I still committed all the way through. I still enjoyed the entire process, and I just allowed myself to paint. And that's the kind of stuff I want to do more in the future. I want to be able to just sit down and work on art and not feel this weird guilt about it, not feel strange about doing my favorite part of my job. And on top of that, I also want to be able to create new and different things from my past content. I want to be able to just explore and see where it takes me and what I learn and share whatever I'm doing with you guys. And the third thing that came out of this meeting was that I really want to finally focus and prioritize video content. I've always enjoyed making video content because it's a great way to connect with an audience. It's a great way to share what you're doing in a beautiful and meaningful way. And on top of all of that, it's such a cool way to capture a moment of your life. Despite enjoying video content so much, I haven't allowed myself to prioritize it because it's much easier to write multiple posts than to make one video. Making a video is time consuming. It's difficult. On top of all of that, it's not the most profitable thing I could be doing with my time. But moving forward, I am committing myself to video. I'm finally going to just throw down and just see what happens. I've changed up my schedule after this meeting, and of the 5 days in a week, 3 of those days are going to be spent making video content. This big meeting was great for allowing me to think about things in a new way, and one thing that it really helped me illuminate is that imposter syndrome has really played a role in holding me back. I've already talked about how it's negatively affected me with art, but it's really been a factor on the video front as well. It's really hard whenever I see amazing YouTubers who rocket themselves to 100,000 subscribers in a year, or people who just make plain good content. And there's definitely been a little voice in my head, thanks to imposter syndrome, that tells me that I'll never be able to compete with these people, that I'll never be as good as them, that I'll never get as many subscribers, that I'll never succeed in that particular way. And to that, I am finally just saying, I'm done with imposter syndrome. I'm done with it telling me what to do, with putting these damn anxieties into my head and making me feel insecure. I know I'm not going to be able to just be done with it overnight and completely just eliminate imposter syndrome. That'd be super cool. But I'm just saying on these particular fronts, I am just focusing on making the things that I want to make, and damn the consequences. If people don't like what I'm making, they can unsubscribe. They can move on and find something that suits them. So moving forward, that's what I'm focusing on, that's what I'm doing, and hopefully that will help me shape this channel into one that more fully expresses who I am, what I love, and what I want to share with you. thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to visit me on Facebook and Instagram if you want to see more content, and if you like this video, please like it so I know to make more content like this, and subscribe if you want to see more. Hopefully, with me focusing on more video content, there'll be a lot more videos this year, so it's not a bad time to jump on board. Anyway, I'll catch you later. Bye.